everybody. Thank you very, very much for coming. This is an amazing turnout. So I'm just going to give a really quick introduction and hand it over to our team. There's a presentation portion, and then we'll break out and we'll have a facilitated discussion. This is a project that we initiated about a year ago. It's grant funded from the state, and it's a really special opportunity for Easthampton to talk about the great things that are happening downtown, the things that we all may see that might be challenges, and what and how these school properties can factor into the future of our downtown. So many of you know that the residents voted last May to fund the construction of a new school, and that immediately set up a couple really important action items around these properties. So in 3 years, the city will own these properties and they'll be vacant. So we're in the process now at the very beginning to start exploring and understanding what we might be able to do with Center Pepin and Maple Street. The beauty of this is that we have 3 years to work through the details, the questions, and the scenarios. This planning grant will end up with what we're going to call a downtown strategic plan, and it's really going to try to lay out sort of a path for the next 3 years, which is, a course that we can see what's going to happen. We're going to have these properties, as you'll hear, we're going to have a new Union Street, reconstructed, and we're looking at Old Town Hall becoming potentially a venue in town in 3 years. And then we'll have the new school online in 3 years. So there's something in the short term that is very tangible. So this is an exercise that is going to be really important for us to try to be specific. We're a small city. We are growing. We're changing, and there are challenges. So my request for everybody tonight is just to keep everyone's opinion valuable. And just be respectful. I think when we get into the small groups, it's often easier to hit the challenges. But what I want to ask is to also keep in mind what's really great, what you like, where you go, and then also the challenges. And then from this, we also want to look past 3 years and figure out what the downtown might look like in 10 years. So that's all part of what we're going to try to do over the course of these events. I think I'm going to hand it over to our consulting team for introductions, and I just can't thank you enough for being here. I'm very impressed with the turnout. I see a lot of familiar faces, so just hang in there. This should be fun, and it's a process that gets people in on the ground floor of looking at what we're going to look like in a couple years. So I think with that, I'm very thankful. I'm going to hand it over now.
So Easthampton. I think really this is a really great turnout for this project, and we're really excited about it. Yes. And I apologize because I did not have my name tags because we came in early. My name is Karthik Shah. I'm a director of urban design for a planning firm based in Boston. We are an architectural planning and design firm. And we've done downtown strategic plan, neighborhood planning, urban design and urban planning projects in many of the Massachusetts communities. So through the RFP process, we were hired by the city of Easthampton to assist you in creating this vision for downtown. With me are my colleagues, Steve Cecil over there, who's our principal. Raisa Sanyat, she'll be one of the facilitators. I think Aksa is taking video somewhere else, and Jess, you met her at the table, signing table. So let's get started. So we have today's session sort of organized in 2 parts. I think we're going to have a short presentation on the planning process and opportunities and challenges in the downtown area, as well as on the school properties. That we sort of have it at around 25 to 30 minutes or so, And almost the majority of the session, we're going to spend it on the tables behind you, where we're going to make groups of 8 to 10 per table. And my facilitator team and Jeff and Jamie, we are all going to assist you sort of go through some of these exercises. So it's not just us who are part of this team. With us, we have RKG Associates who are doing the market study and real estate development and economics part of the study. Understanding, where the market is, real estate market is over here, is the redevelopment on some of the properties feasible or not. And then Ty and Bond are an engineering firm who are assisting us with the parking assessment, understanding of the existing parking, best practices, and how to manage your existing parking. So, what is the downtown strategic plan? I think it's very first thing, it's sort of a blueprint for the future. It sort of captures the vision, your desires, and sort of tries to encapsulate those as concrete actions that you can take moving forward. It also sort of coordinates all the improvement activities. There's things that different city departments could be doing. We want to make sure that all those things are captured and collated so that departments are sort of acting in a much more coordinated manner. It provides a sort of a certainty and a guidance to property owners, business owners, retailers in terms of where the downtown is going. And it provides an opportunity to market your downtown, to future businesses to bring them over here. And you already have a lot of the positive assets and activities happening over here. So the process is, the way that we're going to do the planning process is divided into 4 stages. So we have an analysis part that we've been doing, understanding the existing condition, existing property ownership, and I'll share some of those analysis with you. And then we're at a second stage right now where, this is the first visioning session that we're having, where we're going to speak with all of you, want to understand, what do you want to see happen, what are the opportunities and challenges in the downtown area, as well as for the school buildings. And then once we hear this input, complete the technical analysis part of it, we go back and come up with choices and different scenarios for you to choose from. And that's the third stage. And then once you've had a chance to talk about that, we're going to have, integrate all of that as a sort of a one comprehensive, one plan, which provides you guidance for future. So, just to sort of describe the process that I described, we laid it out where we are currently in that state. So we are right now at the first public meeting over here. We've done existing condition evaluations. Our team was here. We've had, and we've been guided by a sounding board, which is made up of, some of the residents, area businesses, members of the Chamber of Commerce. So those are that's the sounding board that guiding this effort. Is this better for us to see? So we're at the first public meeting stage. After this, we'll go back, develop choices, and then come back and share it with you. In terms of the planned communication and public outreach, we have the project website up. You can get updates on all the presentations, all the materials that we've developed from the project website. We've come here and actually had a series of stakeholder interviews. People who own property or in the downtown area, as well as a few of the shop owners, trying to understand, as the stakeholders, as the people who have interest in what happens with downtown, what are their challenges and opportunities that they see. And then we're going to have a series of sounding board meetings where we sort of show the progress. And then we have 3 public meetings at critical junctures. This is the first one that we're doing. And then Jeff always mentions that the Facebook page is a really active forum for discussion. So if you're providing any comments, or if you're discussing comments over there, those are also coming to us too. So, what are the project goals? I briefly talked about, developing a sort of a coordinated vision for the downtown to enhance the economic development opportunities. And what does that mean? It basically, means we look at, how the parking and access works, how is the walkability over here, are the sidewalks fixed or not, where you need improvements, which properties can be redeveloped or rejuvenated or should be preserved, how does the open space connect, and what are your primary nodes and gateways. Sort of looking at all of it together comprehensively and coming up with a vision. We want to make sure that Cottage Street and Union Street, which is sort of 2 distinct streets and 2 distinct, they have a very distinct character. Cottage Street sort of works as a sort of a social and a cultural mixer, whereas Union Street is more of your daily needs and so forth. So we want to make sure that we enhance both these streets and improve pedestrian access to that, improve parking access, as well as improve the conditions for the businesses over here. 2 school buildings that are going to come up for the new school building that's going to be developed, and going to have this building and the Maple Street Elementary building come online for redevelopment. I think this is 3 years before. This is like the right time for us to address what could happen over there. Another, this we see in a lot of the downtowns in Massachusetts, where parking is always a challenge. I think, as we have this perceived notion that whenever we are shopping in downtown, or we're going to the store, the parking is never available. And I'll show you some numbers as we go ahead, but we want to make sure that you have a lot of parking already in downtown. We want to make sure that you are managing and utilizing that parking in a more effective manner. So we want to look at what are the shared parking opportunities to reduce paved surfaces, improve more walkability, and area for more pedestrian area. The city also has a 40R district zoning, as a part of the downtown. And 40R district zoning is a smart growth district zoning that's supposed to promote, more improvements in downtown, more redevelopment or so. And one thing during the process that we've heard with the city, with some of the stakeholders, is a lot of that redevelopment or reinvestment in downtown has not taken place. So one of the tasks that we'll be doing is actually looking at that zoning and trying to find out, what can be improved in that zoning so that cycle of improvement can be continued on. And then sort of providing a coordinated implementing strategy. So that means, looking at, what are the actions or goals that you have. How do you want to achieve those? What are the funding sources that you want to go for, the state, federal, or local ones, and what is the phasing of those items? So this is the planning study area. It encompasses mostly the commercial properties within the downtown area, along the Union Street side, as well as along the Cottage Street side, and on the southern end you have the Maple Street Elementary School as the boundary, and on the northern end you have the park and the area around the park as the boundary. And one of the things that we always look at, as we start any kind of a downtown study, is what is the planning and the development context that we're looking at? What are the initiatives and the efforts that have already happened over here? What has been implemented? What is in the works? And if it's in the works, at what stage it is? And when we listed it out, I think you have sort of this rejuvenation of the downtown, Cottage Street and the Union Street area, starting from almost 2002. And when we listed all these things out and the efforts that have been there and the things that the projects that have been implemented, we were really, really impressed. I think now I'll say this frankly, we don't see so many, we work in many of the downtowns, and we don't see so many of the projects implemented in those downtowns. There's always, they're in a sort of a process of happening, or they're sort of midway through, but you've had funding from the MassWorks, you've had the rail trail implemented, the mills is sort of buzzing with activity, the Valley Bike Share program is going to start up. You're also, there's a parallel sort of a planning process happening on the Easthampton Future, sort of the cultural master plan for the city. And I think this is sort of a good opportunity to invite Pascalina from the city to sort of give you just a little bit of an update on where we are in that process, if you've not been able to attend those workshops.
Hello everybody, my name is Pasqualina Azzarello. I'm the City Arts Coordinator here in the city of Easthampton. I know many of you, but I see a lot of unfamiliar faces in the room as well, so it's great to have such a wonderful turnout. And it's very exciting. It's a very exciting time for visioning in the city of Easthampton right now. We keep hearing the words coordinated efforts and coordinated vision, and we're doing a lot to make sure the arts and culture conversation is connected with all of the transformations taking place in the city right now. I work in the planning department of the city of Easthampton, so I work very closely with Jeff Bagg. And I have been also working with Sita Magnuson of Depict and a number of other folks who have been leading a series of community engagement sessions that are specific to the future of arts and culture in the city of Easthampton. And as some of you may know, in 2008, the city wrote a master plan, and there was an arts and culture chapter of the master plan. And it is really remarkable. You can go to our website, easthamptonfutures.org, and look through the master plan to see all that has been accomplished in 10 years through largely grassroots and volunteer efforts. It's really remarkable. And so this is really an incredible opportunity to vision forward, especially as our city continues to change. We're visioning forward, we're creating a space, we're really having very thoughtful conversations about what people want for the future of arts and culture of Easthampton. Many of the people who've been attending these sessions, we've had 2 so far, and there's 1 more coming up this Saturday. I'll tell you more about it. Many people are artists, and many people are not artists, and we want all perspectives in the room. Whether we're artists or not, if we live here in Easthampton, arts and culture very much affects our lives every day. It affects our livability of the city. It creates opportunities for getting together and feeling good. Events like Cultural Chaos and Book Fest and monthly art walks, these are all part of our efforts at Easthampton City Arts. And it's also a really important moment in that we have an opportunity to really protect the incredible work that's been done. So many efforts have gone into creating arts and culture here in Easthampton. And what we're hearing from the people, as you can see from some of these slides, A lot of people's concerns are not art-related. They have everything to do within the context of art, about affordability, about parking, about traffic, a lot of the things we're all concerned with here tonight. So I really encourage you to come this Saturday. All of these visioning sessions take place at the ballroom at Eastworks. It starts at 10 a.m. and they go till 4 p.m. It's very participatory, it's a lot of activity, it's a lot of engagement. And what we're doing is we're taking all of the information that's generated through these sessions and we're using it to create the next arts and culture chapter of the next master plan. So we're visioning forward 10 years and making some really thoughtful decisions about what we want that to look like. So I encourage you all to come on Saturday. They're really fun, and we're going to be doing a lot of just good work that leads to things that affect us for a very long time. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm going to be here tonight, so if anyone has any additional questions, please come find me. Thank you.
Thanks, Pastor, for that great introduction. So I mentioned that we've started looking at some of the existing condition information, and what you have on the screen is the current land ownership in the downtown area. And what it really tells us is, where, who owns what. You can, majority of the, projects or initiatives when they want to move forward, if there is a city ownership or a state ownership, I think that's much more easier to sort of move forward. Private ownership is sort of a little bit difficult. So it's sort of a good layer for us to see, what land, what parcels are owned by who. So we have, city owning some parcels over here, institutional land ownership. You have the parks and open spaces owned by the city, as well as some religious institution that own the parcels over here. And of course, the school parcels sort of show up as green, surrounded by the private land ownership on all the sides. So with the land ownership, you also want to look at what kind of different land uses that exist on that land. And it basically allows us to see where is the cluster of commercial activity, where is the cluster of residential activity, where is the cluster of in institutional libraries, schools, all those things sort of closely located. It sort of helps us identify the patterns and start connecting some of these uses. If there are barriers or challenges between these uses, we try and work it through improving sidewalks, providing pedestrian connections, more open space connections, and so forth. Zoning sort of helps us understand, what are the regulatory, what are the regulations that apply to those pieces of land. And you have sort of a different kind of zoning. Mainly the commercial parcels are downtown business, and then neighborhood business towards the north side over here where the main street is, and rest of it is mainly residential, and a little bit of, I think, residential urban, which is a different way of saying it, where in this zone you can allow a little bit more higher density. So that's the residential urban zone. It's sort of it's direct reflection of the land use map, but it gets codified, and there are dimensional standards, where you can develop, how much you can develop as sort of associated with zoning. In 2018, I think a portion of the downtown Easthampton was also designated an opportunity zone, and I think it's an opportunity. The opportunity zone basically is allows you to attract more investment in your downtown, and I think we want to see what are the challenges with the opportunity zone, why some of the reinvestment has not taken place, and how can we untangle some of those opportunities. I mentioned that our colleagues were over here from Thai and Bond measuring the parking, and we got some of the preliminary numbers, and we're going to draw them up, and you're going to start seeing them on the website. But I thought I'll share it with you over here. You almost have 1,900 off-street parking spaces available in your downtown area, and almost 125 on-street spaces over here. Almost 2,000 parking spaces over here, which are not always full at the same time. So you definitely have opportunities for shared parking in the downtown. So as we started our initial analysis, we wanted to understand, with the discussion with the stakeholders, the sounding board, and the city staff, what are the potential opportunities and challenges over here. So we thought we'll share it with you. So you've had sort of a momentum of public and private investment over here from 2002 onwards. We want to make sure that you have a clear path forward to maintain that momentum going. We want to make sure that we want to enhance the downtown's historic fabric and utilize the assets that you have. We want to make sure that whatever the placemaking initiatives that we have, open space improvements or pedestrian improvements, they are tied to the cultural activities and the great work that has already happened in downtown is sort of tied to that. And leveraging the municipal assets for the future, that the 3 school properties that will come online can allow you to can act as a catalytic project to sort of add more vibrancy in downtown. And as we'll do one of the few of the exercises, we want to hear from you what are the other opportunities in the downtown area. Some of the challenges that we came across were, what we see in a lot of the communities is the mismatch between what the towns want and what the realistic market is suggesting. So we want to make sure that we're providing incentives, we're making sure that we're fine-tuning the zoning and so forth, so that the realistic economics and the market conditions work to allow you to invest in the downtown properties, in adaptive use and in new construction. We want to make sure that as you're growing, as all these great initiatives are happening over here, the old way of have perception about parking are not always going to work. If we always start providing parking spaces for all the uses that we add, you're going to have a lot of parking lots over here and less space for buildings, for uses like open spaces, parks, gardens, and so forth. So we want to help understand those perceptions and maybe help you change them a bit. We want to improve the experience for pedestrians and bicyclists. I think that's really key to this. Steve's going to talk about how do you actually go about analyzing the school properties. What do you think of it? When you're thinking what kind of uses would come over there, and what are the criteria that you establish?
So everybody's heard about the school project, right? I don't need to tell you about that. But you have an opportunity of significance for the downtown as you make decisions about the school and the lands that they're on. And there's a couple of years to get ready for that. You all determine what the future is going to be up to a certain extent. If you invite people to come and be tenants or to redevelop the buildings, that will be through a relationship that you'll establish. And there's a process for how you go about that. But each of these schools has some distinct challenges and opportunities. We want to hear your ideas about what these places could be. This building is a fairly large building. It is made up of two parts, as many of you know, and the floor levels don't match all that well. It's got a great space that we're in right now, and it really has a wonderful presence on the street. But trying to figure out what to do with the different types of facilities, the gymnasium and the cafeteria are important ideas. It's a 3-story school, and it is stoutly built. The site's a relatively constrained site. I understand you have access to some parking spaces across the street, but there's not a ton of parking. The center school, again, historic. All of these are historically important, but they're not listed on the historic register per se. Again, heavy-duty bearing wall construction. It's a quite beautiful building, I think. But this building, like the other buildings, if you do significant changes in these buildings, including just changes in use, you likely will trigger contemporary code requirements, and it can be extraordinarily expensive to meet energy codes and access codes and other considerations, and that's something that we'll be learning about through the process. There's a chance for parking, perhaps. There's a little bit of space backs up against other parking lots, but the building itself, like other school buildings, the footprint of it, the stairways and the corridors are really large compared to the usable space. So that's something that in planning for the reuse, they're not fundamentally efficient buildings for things other than education. There's a wonderful attic space though. If you've ever had a chance to get up into that attic, it's gorgeous, wood construction, if somebody can figure out how to use it. The Maple Street School, again, a relatively small building, but a relatively large site. Next slide shows the site itself. And without pushing too hard, you could put 75 parking spaces back in that area for the playground. But it could be open space as well. It's a 3-story building, and again, with these big quarters and stairwells that make it a challenge to use efficiently, but it's a gorgeous building. All 3 of these buildings have a lot to offer architecturally. So that's what you have. Now, schools are being reused, have been for decades, throughout the Commonwealth, throughout New England, the country. And these are just a list of some of the schools that we've been involved in or aware of, and the kinds of things that can happen. One of the things that's important to understand from a process standpoint is that there will be many ideas that come forward. And there's a process that comes along. First, the city has to decide, do we want to hold on to it and use it for municipal uses? Which will, by the way, come at a cost, because then you've got to maintain it and operate it, etc. So you have the buildings, and if you need to use them, or parts of them. But if it's determined that it should go through another entity, then you have to go through a request for proposal process. So it's not just a good idea, it has to be advertised, and one of your jobs is to put together the criteria. How do you decide when 2 good ideas come forward? What are the criteria that you're going to use? And you can really establish how these happen. It's not just letting it go and selling it to the highest bidder. We're going to ask you a little bit about what your thoughts are. Some communities say, well, whatever we want to do, we want to reduce the cost to the municipality. It may be that you want to have active uses that add to the downtown. That's important. The historic character may be really important. Limiting the amount of uses that would generate parking demand. So if there's a bunch of parking, you don't want to have a use that is going to use up tons of other parking spaces. These are the kinds of things that you need to figure out what your priorities are. Then you'll go out and ask people to come in within that list of priorities and bring proposals to you for decide. And that whole process can take about a year and a half to run through well. So if you start adding it up, you're right on schedule to start thinking about it, preparing for it, and being ready to go so that you're not like some communities and have the building sitting empty without a plan after the new school is built. So with that, we're going to break up. You've been very patient for, there's been a lot of information flying at you here. And it's now going to be our turn to listen to you. So we have a series of workshop sessions that we're going to walk through with facilitators. And I'm going to ask you to move back to the tables in a second. We're just going to walk through, we're going to go through 4 exercises here. Maybe I'll just walk through them real quick, okay? So we're going to go through 4 items. The first thing is we want you to help our facilitators. They have maps, and we want to know what you think you really like and think is an important part of the downtown, and where those are, and where you think, we don't like to say problems, but really that's what we're asking you. We say opportunities sometimes, and that means there's a problem. Every problem is an opportunity, right? But tell us what you think and and work to fill that out. Next session is going to be about opportunities and challenges in a different way. We're going to ask you, well, so what are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities? What do you think the challenges are? And we're going to give you an opportunity for you to tell us what you think are most important. If we have time, we may have a little bit of a glimpse at what different tables are coming up with, because we're going to get lots of different answers about these things. But then we're going to pause and change gear, and we're going to ask you about the schools. What uses should they be put to? What should they be reused for? What do you think should be entertained? And then how should you judge among competing ideas? What's important to you? So the second part's about the schools, the first part's about the downtown. But what I'd ask you to do is if you would divide yourselves into exactly 9 equal groups. Because we're adults who graduated. But here's the trick. If we have so many people here tonight that we are going to probably fill every seat around the table, and there may be 1 or 2 people standing at the ends. If you look around and there's an empty seat, make sure you go there, because I don't want to see 25 people in one place and 2 lonely people at another table. So just try to find a spot till it looks about equal. And if you can't sit next to your friend, well, they'll be here at the end and you can get back together. Okay? Here we go.